This is Laura with Popcore, and I'm here with Oliver Barrett. Oliver, you currently live in Austin, Texas, right? But
I sure do.
you didn't grow up there though.
No, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Wonderful, sunny, 15% of the year, Cleveland, Ohio. I love Cleveland though. I mean, like great people shaped me into who I am. I was very competitive. I was kind of like, if you really wanted to do anything, you had to be very, very good at it or just be very, very persistent. I like to think that I'm persistent. I like to think I'm good at stuff. So, it's one of those two things or both.
Were you one of those kids who grew up drawing automatically, just had a pen in your hand all the time?
I sure was. Um, I spent a lot of time drawing X-Men, like tons and tons and tons of X-Men. Like I don't remember like who exactly got me into it, but it's one of the other kids in the neighborhood. He had a binder full of Marvel Masterpiece cards. This is like 91 or 92. Um, I made my dad take me downtown to the comics shop so I could buy as many as he would let me, which was maybe like 2 packs. Wasn't very much. But that was kind of the start of it. And like I would just sort of emulate all that stuff. And then I was, copying comic covers and I got really into like watching basketball. So I would draw a lot of basketball players. Same with baseball, did a lot of that sort of thing. And like it was a lot of like drawing the stuff that I was interested in, which is kind of what I do for a living now, which is amazing.
Where'd you go to art school?
I went to the Cleveland Institute of Art. It was a 5-year school at the time. They made you do 2 years of foundation, so it was like 2 years of drawing and painting and like two-dimensional design, three-dimensional design, and then there was some electives that you could take. And I ended up going into animation and then sort of branched off into taking a lot of visual communication courses and some illustration courses. But I spent a lot of time in like the painting department there. So I
What did
kind
you
of
like to paint while you were there?
portraits. Mostly because I was terrible at it. Like I was just awful. It's like complete garbage. Uh, when I was learning, when I was just in school, like I felt like going from high school where like you're one of the best kids into a school where like everybody is doing it. It was kind of like a real shock. And I think it took me a long time to relax and like learn instead of just feeling like I was overwhelmed.
It's interesting to me that you had issues with portraiture.
One of the teachers like kind of he told me a few things that kind of unlocked it for me where it was like, just because you know something is there doesn't mean that you have to render it. Like, for example, like if we're, painting a head, I know that there's two eyes, but if it's turned a certain way, like just make sure that it looks like what you're seeing and not like what you have, what you're assuming is there. I don't really know if that translates so much, but it was like a lot of sort of that direct feedback that I got while I was in school that kind of unlocked it I for me. And started I doing
Interesting.
like portraits of random people to put on flyers. Like I remember there was a very, very crudely drawn, like 21-year-old LeBron James that like showed up on like 6 or 7 of our flyers. And I was like, well, maybe I can make actual money while I'm in school doing this too. And I got an internship at a design agency in Cleveland. And then that led to another one at a different agency. And then I got hired there my last year of school. But like I had kind of amassed a smaller portfolio of just illustration work. And I had put it on Flickr and I think Tumblr at the time. That was the big one. And I had cold emailed a bunch of different places. One of them was ESPN, and they replied. Again, like you got to take your shot at this stuff. Otherwise, like if you don't care, who's gonna care?
Well, it's interesting you brought up portraiture and your struggle with that in college because to me, I think you have such an amazing hand at portraiture. What are your favorite kind of images to make?
A simple, just headshot sort of portrait is gonna be near the top of the list for a favorite project, just because you can be creative with it and you can have fun with it. But in terms of like an assignment, there's like a real concrete objective. It's like, okay, like there's a subject translated into an image. And I really, really like that. Like I really enjoy that direct line of here's the problem, here's the solution. Um, there's a lot of room for expression while trying to show another person. And then if you can do that within a larger project for something like a movie poster or a book cover or a comic cover, and it's for something that you actually engage with and care about, then that's even better.
So when you make an image for a film poster, just one thing I notice is that you have to somehow sort of figure out what is the way that I want to, what image is really going to express this film, right? In some new way. And so I want to just mention a couple of your pieces that I just love. And one is like Full Metal Jacket, where basically the soldier's face just becomes like this acrid smoke. And then also there's The Dark Knight, where the Joker is falling and his coat almost looks like the bat wings behind him. And then the final one that I just think is so amazing is Clockwork Orange, where you get this amazing low angle shot of Alex, so that as a viewer, you almost feel like you're the victim because he's sort of standing over you. So, how do you do, like, how do you look at a film and really conceive of what that key image is going to be?
In my case, I hope that my brain does it without me having to try too hard. Or it's kind of I don't want to say it happens automatically because it doesn't, but anytime that I'm like, well, you really gotta, I think like this has got to be a great idea for this poster, it doesn't happen. Like I can't like force a great idea. And well, I'd say, 10 out of 10 times, like that's the first place I go to is like, that's, what sort of great idea can we come up with here? And it's always like crap. Like the first like 6 or 7 ideas are crap because I'm trying to force them. And maybe there's a good one in, maybe there is a good one in there, but I'm not able to like look at it that way. It's when I take a second, and sometimes there's a meditation involved where you're taking a break from just like thinking about it at all. And then your mind will kind of distill your thoughts down into something. And then it pops up in a lot of cases. That Dark Knight example, like I've been excited about that movie since the very first press image came out in like 2000, like summer 2006 when I started working on it. So when I started working with Mondo all those years ago, it was like that was on the list of like if I could do a poster, that's on the list. Anything that I would come up with wasn't something that it was like I think this could be cool, and I would send it to them, and they'd be like, nah, or I wouldn't even get that far. It was like, this isn't it. But it just clicked. Like it was just in my head. I saw it. I saw the poster, and then it's sort of a process of like smashing a square peg into a round hole. Like please work. Like I know it's in there somewhere. Like I know this idea will work, and then most of the times it does. But there's cases where I think it's something's brilliant, and I've got it, sketched out, and like I have it all like mapped out in my brain, and then when you actually start putting the ingredients on the pizza, it's awful. It doesn't cook right. For as many like good as ideas as I think I have, I'm always worried that like I've left meat on the bone, so to speak, and like not executed it 100% how I wanted to. Again, like that's almost like a cognitive error and like an all or nothing thinking in a way, because like once the artwork is off my computer and off to the client, like it's no longer mine in a way. Like people see it and they don't know all the other stuff that I was thinking. It's just it is what it is. So as long as I've made sure that that part of it looks as good as it can, then I've succeeded.
Do you have an image that's your favorite?
I would say it's the Green Room poster from 2017 from Mondo, just because that was the second poster that I did with them, and that was kind of the one that changed the level of emails that I got. Everything being like a perfect storm just sort of elevated my life after that. So that one takes the cake.
That's when the artist isn't just, a great hand on a piece of paper. It's your insight, which is what I was kind of trying to get at with your posters that you made, that really just take that key image that somehow just grabs people. And that's why you're an artist, because the artist sees that insight and then figures out how to translate it to the page in some way that grabs people.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Anytime there's like a poster or a cover project that lands in my inbox, the goal is encapsulating the entire thing into one frame.
Let's talk about your project with Popcore and AMC and Paramount, which is the Gladiator 2 poster.
Ancient Rome, armor, swords, blood, all really cool stuff. And then it's a sequel to, a modern classic. So it was like, okay, I'm not really seeing where I say no. So it was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna do this.
My favorite thing about the poster is, of course, all the dynamic movement in it, and then also all the
Hmm.
reflections in the sword. That's really cool.
Watching the trailer and that last sequence where he's throwing the sword and catching it and then taking a swing, I was like, oh, that's it. Like if there's a way for me to just crop it so that the I guess it would be good fringe, I don't know what you want to call it, on his armor when it's all splayed all the way across. Like there's so many dynamic shapes you can make in the composition just using that. So between that, his arms, the legs, where his head is, where the swords are, there's just so many cool different moments of like black on white, positive, negative in that composition that it feels like I really didn't have to work that hard to find it. Like a lot of times, like that Dark Knight poster you mentioned, like that was hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of just like moving pieces of it around to try to get it to look how I wanted. This was kind of just like, oh, there it is, without really doing much of anything.
Anything you want to add that you found cool about working with AMC and Paramount? Because this is the first time AMC has really done a project like this where they're using art-driven, screen-printed posters.
They let me do my thing. There's so many of these opportunities that come up where it's like, oh, we want you to, we want you to do a piece that you'd be happy to post or happy to share, something that you're proud of, and then like you get to the end of the process, and it's like, oh, I've all of my decisions have been changed into something else to fit the client, and like that's fine, that happens. Those aren't the projects that I want to talk about, though. Like this is a project I want to talk about. I wouldn't have really changed anything else about the poster, which when you get to the end of a project and you feel like you've checked every box and there's not a whole lot left to do, like that's a rare occurrence for me. But yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Ollie. The poster's absolutely awesome. I can't wait to hang it on my own wall. It looks amazing.